Welcome to a new edition of If I Ever Live to Be. I'm excited because I'm welcoming back really one of my mentors and friend. I feel like Randy would probably get on to me if I didn't call him that, just because we've known each other for so long and you've impacted really not only my work and my career, but on into life and family, which we're going to get into a little bit more in the show later today. So welcome back, Randy.
You're very kind. Thank you, Whitney. I was looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, same here. And I would be remiss if I didn't tee up because we'll definitely give you opportunity at the end of the show for people to connect. But you're an executive coach, president of Servian Partners, and of course, you're
Mm.
also co-founder of the Leadership Foundry. So candor and time management and executive leadership and all the things that we're going to highlight today, you are an absolute expert on. So I say that with all my heart.
I don't know about the expert part, but I will chime in and give my best opinion.
I love it.
No, thank you for saying that. I've had a fun career as both a senior executive for 25 years, but really a coach and a consultant devoted to leadership and leadership development the last 14 years. And I'm very blessed to get to do this work. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and I absolutely learn something new every time we sit down. So I'm super excited to dive in today because we're going to talk about your 13th book. So first of all, writing 13 books, I think we should take a moment to highlight that. But this is your 13th, a different take. It's thoughtful insights to help you thrive at work and life. So, really quick before we dive into this book, 13 books, Randy. How do you do it all? Plus all the aforementioned things.
Sometimes I feel like I'm an executive coach with a writing habit. I like to write, and sometimes I wish I could just go off to a mountaintop and do it. But I
Yeah.
write. I write in the margins. I write in my free time. I write when I can. I feel like I'm blessed with this ongoing lab experiment every day. I get to work with some amazing clients and teams all over the
Yeah.
world. And in those conversations, we talk about real life, real challenges, things that are affecting them personally and professionally. And I get to work with them to solve those problems. And that becomes the fodder for my books because I'm always in the middle of all these wonderful experiences because I really do enjoy writing. I find a way to put those into actionable best practices that help others. So usually the coaching and the consulting and all that stuff, the living that I do feeds this writing. So I keep up that pace, not out of you know, it's not difficult because I'm always coaching, so therefore I probably am always writing. And I journal a lot, so I always have a journal with me and I try to capture the lessons and the epiphanies and the reflections that come to me. And I just have a lot of discipline, and that discipline allows me to put the time in. Typically, a Saturday, Sunday morning at 6 or 7 a.m. when my family's asleep is my prime writing time, but, I don't find it to be a big effort because I'm just committed to doing it with intentionality.
Yeah. One, I really love that you highlighted your large why behind it, because I know you do so much work with younger generations, aspiring professionals, emerging leaders, and you really have this wonderful way of just kind of marrying what you do, those lessons that you take, and what I would say is almost like part of the purpose of doing that, which is to continue to share that knowledge, right? I feel like we kind of go through life in our careers and we learn these things along the way, and part of our duty to other humans really is to pass on that knowledge, and then it's up to them to dive in and to take it and to read it and implement it, but at least we're doing our part on sharing that information.
Yeah, thanks for spotlighting that. I would tell you in my coming up on my 39th year of my professional life, I've spent decades building a really robust network. And, it's taken a lot of effort. It's been a labor of love, but, not just here in Atlanta and in the Southeast, but I've made friends and built relationships in a number of different areas of my life, my faith, the autism community. I have a son with autism through other friendships, other means. I've built this network that's gotten very big, but one of the things that my mom and dad instilled in me because they were such great servant leaders is, you know, you should always be thinking about serving others. So one of the ways that I try to serve this big network that I've built for decades is through my writing, through content. How can I put what I've learned, what I'm thinking about out into the world that would help make the world a better place, help make your life a little easier, maybe give you an idea that you have not yet thought of. And that's what usually fuels the writing is I do it out of a desire to invest back into this amazing network of people that I'm very fortunate to know.
Yeah. Well, and to dive to kind of take a deep dive on your newest book, A Different Take, you tee up and it's really, like, hard hitting on chapter 1, and it was funny, it's the title of it is 7 Best Practices to Reframe Your Thinking, which is really what A Different Take is about. It's, okay, we're thinking about time management differently, we're thinking about our
Mhm.
relations differently, and just kinda operating differently and really going against the current, and I was like, "This is a perfect place to start," and I was going through and I was highlighting, and I'm highlighting sections of all 7 best practices. So, I don't wanna give them all away because everyone should go get your book that's available on Amazon, but just to highlight some of 'em, definitely gratitude, and just being thankful is a common theme that you highlight throughout this book, but most of your work, Randy. So, I would love for you to talk about that because it really is I feel almost like the core foundation of this different thinking, right? So many of us go through life and we hit traffic, but maybe we didn't think about, but perhaps that prevented me from an accident or,
Mhm.
right? It's just like changing challenges and obstacles and almost viewing them as, okay, well, how can I learn from this or how can I turn it into a blessing or, what else did it tee me up for? So I would love for you to dive into that.
Yeah, it kinda comes down to the word reframe, and it implies certainly that we all kinda come at life in our own way, and we've got very set ways of dealing with challenges, with blessings. We all have our ways, but maybe, especially as we get older, it's very appropriate for us to sometimes recalibrate and reframe. And I know a lot of people that are very gifted, they do great things, they're amazing folks. But for some of those people, and maybe years ago I was one of those people, I would not describe them as being very grateful. But I can tell you when I started to really focus on the filter of gratitude, it reframed everything for me. So I do look at blessings and burdens as something to be grateful for. Obviously, the blessings are fun, and it's like, "Hey, I got my birthday present." But sometimes, as you say, being stuck in traffic, not getting the raise, someone cutting you off in traffic or whatever it is, maybe that's a moment to say, "I'm grateful for something that you learned from that." So, I think this idea of reframing your thinking, I very intentionally chose it to start the book with, because the whole book, quite frankly, is about reframing and rethinking about common problems with some new ideas. That's really what the whole thing is about. So that chapter kind of immerses you very quickly, as you alluded to, into this idea that it's okay to come at things a little differently and just have a reframing. And I think if I remember specifically how I wrote that chapter, I was dealing with someone, a friend of mine, who was really kinda stuck in a rut and seeing the world only one way, and
Mhm.
the advice that I gave my friend is exactly what became the chapter, because I tried to get him to rethink this rut he was in as actually something very different, and it helped him get to a better place, and I was grateful to be part of that journey with him.
Yeah. And another best practice that you highlight is seeking out candid voices. And point out and really stress in this section that you don't want to look for someone who's just going to always validate your ideas. You don't need yes men in your life. You need those people who may push back and ask you questions. But what I really wanted to highlight and ask you about this section is how do you find those safe, candid voices? Because if you look at the younger generations you work with, that may not necessarily be your friends, right? Because your friends may sway you to do something opposite of what you really should do. And I feel like as we get older, if the voices that we're going to are not thinking differently and we are trying to think differently, it could almost cut your career short,
Mhm.
possibly. So how do you find those safe voices to go to?
Well, it's funny, the way you set that up for me was very helpful because you kinda have to reframe your thinking about how you think about getting this feedback.
Yeah.
Because if up until now, you would go to those people that were great encouragers, "Whitney, you're amazing. Whitney, you're a rock star. You're the best." That feels really good. That's great encouragement. Everybody needs a little encouragement. But if you're trying to grow and get better, that's a little worthless. So if you reframe your thinking about this, maybe the thought is, I probably need to be observant and look at people that I see that seem to be straight shooters, that seem to be very honest and open and transparent. I need to find people that are not hesitant to say the difficult things. And maybe it's not you immediately approaching them. It's just you observing in my circle, is anybody like that? And if it's not in my circle, maybe I start looking at work or in other places for that candid voice. And sometimes it's just you going to an existing relationship and saying, Whitney, look, I really need some feedback on how I can get better. I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate that you're always there for me, but I'm looking for 2 things that I could do better and how I lead. Can you comment on them? Please give me honest feedback. I give you permission to be super candid with me. So maybe going to an existing relationship and giving them permission and asking something really meaty and specific. So there are a number of ways to do it, but you kind of see what I just did there. I had to reframe for your audience how you think about gathering feedback before you get the feedback that will help you reframe your thinking.
Yes. And I love the, recommendation of asking for or telling them that they have that permission to be candid with you. Don't just agree with me. Please tell me truly what you think should happen here.
Well, remember the number one driving fear typically for people that don't wanna give you candid feedback is they're worried about hurting your feelings. And if
Right.
you start out of the gate with, "I wanna hear this. It's okay. You've got my permission." I'm bringing down that barrier for you, so it's much more comfortable for you to say, "Randy, you're chubby and losing your hair." "Okay, great. Thanks. I didn't know. Thank you." Actually, I did know.
That's too funny. Okay, I would not say that.
I'll say it because it's true.
All right, so skipping ahead to and I love your numbers, Randy. I love when you give numerated lists because that's just right up my alley. I love being able to go through and read those and check
I'm a list maker
basically
from way back. Yeah.
well, and check them off, and that makes it so easy for it's kinda like a mirror that I can go through and really look at them, but this is 6 helpful tips I wish I had known early in my career, and what's interesting, forgive me, listeners, because I'm fresh off this Disney trip, and there are so many experiences that I had that are contributing to really kinda how I'm seeing and viewing things, but we had, a precious young lady that was one of our waitresses in Epcot. I don't even remember how we got to talking about this story other than I think Scott had asked her, "Tell us about your internship. Where are you from?" Things like that, because of course, Disney has an internship program, and she was sharing about how she lived in England, and she was working at this job that she didn't like. She saw this internship opportunity in America with Disney, and she decided to go out on a whim, and she really viewed it as like a reset. She was like, "I just need a break. I need to do something in this break, but I'm gonna just go out there and take a breather."
Mhm.
And she came away realizing that she really enjoyed being in control of her time and working for herself, which then teed me up to share about my entrepreneurial experience. So I love the first 2 points of this chapter because highlight that your 20s are a great lab experience, and that's probably what she was. I think she was a good probably 10, 15 years younger than I am. But enjoying the journey and getting your priorities straight. She didn't realize when she took this big leap to come to America that she was essentially gonna find her purpose here. But if you don't take that time to enjoy the journey, maybe you don't even know what your priorities are. So I'd love for you to really speak into that.
I'm really fortunate that I get to be in front of college students a lot, especially for my 2025 book, Practical Virtue, which I
Oh,
wrote for early career professionals. But one of the questions they often ask me is, Mr. Hain, what is one thing you regret, or what is one thing you wish you'd done differently when you were our age?
yeah.
And I often talk about, I wish I'd taken the time to savor the journey and enjoy it more. I was so single minded and focused on working and building my career and getting promoted. I feel like I blinked and missed my early to mid 20s. Now, you could look at today and say, well, the results work for you. It must have been a great experience. And I don't regret all of it, but I really didn't take the time to live. I was working, learning, getting promoted, putting tons of hours in because I really wanted to, advance my career. But I didn't stop and smell the roses enough. And I encourage students, young professionals, even senior professionals, doesn't matter. All of us should stop occasionally and reflect on where am I? What am I doing? Where have I been? And enjoy it more. So I wish I traveled more. I wish I'd done a lot of things. Again, the results may say, well, it all worked out, and maybe it did. But I tell young people all the time, look around, see what works, figure out what you like, and eventually, if you do it long enough, you'll figure out what you love. And in my mid 40s, I really figured out I am being drawn to coaching and I love it. And for the last 15 years, it doesn't feel like work because all I do every day is what I love.
Yeah. Well, that, if I may, that's a beautiful segue to the next part that I wanted to take us of chapter 27, which is being fully present will transform your life. And I can identify with everything you just said. And if I can just read a little bit, this is an engagement of you and a friend over coffee. And your friend shared with you, most days just blur together. I know I'm missing out on important opportunities with family, friends, and colleagues because I am constantly busy. Sometimes it feels like I've blinked and several years have disappeared and I'm not sure how to make it better. And you just go through and you offer the advice that you give to him about, mining for gold and looking for those nuggets and just being fully present. And I definitely want you to share more with this because before I hit the record button, you were very candid with me. I almost got in trouble because I was sharing about how before this recent trip to Disney, it had been 10 years since
Mhm,
I had taken a vacation where I had not worked. So
mhm,
I was very much, I felt like I blinked and I'm 38, but I was very much in that same, okay, I was, if we're on vacation and the family's getting up at 9 or 10, well, I had already been up 4 hours prior trying to work so that when everyone else got up, I could take that time and
mhm.
go, spend the day with them. But the part of vacation is supposed to be rest and being
Mm.
present, and if you never fully disconnect from the constant hustle and bustle, you can miss that, but there's really no reason why, Randy. I feel like we sit and I'm like you and I were talking, I'm like, my business was still in existence when I got back. The lights were still on. I still had emails coming in, like, everything was fine, nothing was on fire when we got back to Georgia.
The business was still there when you got back. And listen, I share my thoughts that I'm about to share with you now through hard-fought wisdom because I lived the life of the busy person that struggled to turn it off. I was building my career, and then I was building my company, and, we've got 2 my wife and I have 2 adult sons. My oldest son has autism. So I had a lot to take care of, and that stress of that drove me to be on a lot, but something happens when you cross a certain age barrier. For me, it was my season where I really recalibrated that thinking. I don't know if you can make it out, but behind me are pictures or artwork from all the different places that we've traveled over the years. And every time I walk into my office at home, I'm confronted with these wonderful reminders, these memory keepers of experiences with my family, beautiful art, pictures that we took, just things that remind me of the importance of rest and enjoying God's creation, enjoying life. So, and when I think about being fully present and this whole idea of rest, there's something that got into my head in my late 50s that every year gets more and more powerful. And it's this mantra that we always need to be working to live, not living to work. And I meet people every single day that are living to work, and they may not even realize that they're doing it, but we should be working to live, not living to work. So if you subscribe to that, if it resonates with you, if you're listening, start to think about how do I reorder my life, my existence to support working to live, because then work is going to be more successful because you're happier, rested, more engaged in the things that really matter. Work is going to benefit from that. And certainly, which is the point, your loved ones, maybe your self-care, but also your loved ones, the people you really love, are also gonna benefit by being the priority. So, this idea of being fully present, there's a lot to it, and that chapter really gets into a lot of different detail. But this idea of starting with, "I wanna work to live, not live to work," is a great mantra to drive your efforts, whatever they need to be, to go down that path. But I really value being able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with someone and be indifferent to my email, be indifferent to my phone.
Mhm.
I put my phone away. You
Mhm.
know, when I go walking, I'm not listening to podcasts. Sorry, I love your podcast, but I'm not listening to anything. I am thinking.
Yeah.
When I'm exercising, I'm exercising. When I'm having a dinner with my family, I'm having dinner with my family. So try to stop multitasking and focus on just being present in the moment. By the way, all the studies out there you'll ever read say that multitasking is the least effective, most inefficient thing we can do. You need to focus on doing one thing at a time and doing it with excellence. So being fully present is a step in that direction.
Yeah. Well, and you and I are both people of faith too, Randy, and I just have to believe I don't think God intended us for just work, work, work all day, right? Like even He created the Sabbath. The Sabbath is for rest.
Mhm.
We are not meant to just stay locked up in our offices. And another chapter we won't get into it, but you speak on the power of serving others, the key to a meaningful life. If every single moment of every single day is just packed to the brim, you do not have time for that. You don't have time for all the things that we just talked about, nor do you have time to pour into others, which is just, it's exactly what we're supposed to do. That's exactly why we're here.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Alex Havard wrote an amazing book years ago, Created for Greatness, one of my favorites. And he talked about the two most powerful virtues that all successful leaders possess. One is magnanimity, which is the call to greatness. We are called to, God has planted the seed of greatness in all of us. How do we activate that, and how do we do things with generosity, great heart? How do we activate that amazing thing that we've all been given? But that's not enough. It has to be done in tandem with humility. And the way he defines humility is you must always act in the service of others. So, magnanimity and humility are the two driving virtues that make successful leaders. And it's important to remember that as we think about all the things that you and I are talking about today.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been so good, Randy. I was so excited for our conversation, and I definitely recommend A Different Take. It's available on Amazon, so everyone go out and get a copy, please. You will just love diving into this book. But it's been out a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
So, given that and this being your 13th book, is there anything that's kind of surprised you about this latest release?
There are two things that really kind of jump out at me. One is I'm a little surprised at how popular it has become as a book club selection. So we're getting contacted left and right by people that are interested in doing book clubs with it. I'm also having a lot of leaders in my network buy it in bulk and give it to their teams. So they're doing a book club internally. So that has been a lot of fun. I mean, just yesterday I was in front of 35 leaders of a local Atlanta company. They had bought the book for everyone, and I came and did a Q&A for them, which I always love to do. So I think that's been surprising and fun. I think the other thing, and this is something that I'm introducing to help people understand the purpose of the book. We have a project that's associated with it called the Thrive 26 Project. And if you notice the subtitle of the book, A Different Take, Thoughtful Insights to Help You Thrive at Work and in Life. So the idea is read the book, consume the book, reflect on the book, activate the lessons in the book, and this is gonna help you thrive at work and in life. So the challenge, the project, the Thrive 26 project is everybody that is reading the book, I want you to commit to thriving for yourself in the rest of this year and beyond, but also invite someone to go on the journey with you. Gift the book to someone that you want to go on this Thrive journey with you. So those are two things that kind of stand out in the 3 weeks it's been out, but very, very blessed and very thankful and grateful that people have been responding to it so favorably.
Yeah. And I didn't even mention, I know we dived into, like, I love the numerated list, but you also make that so easy to sit down and go through this book with someone else. Because again, at the end of every chapter, there's reflection questions and a call to just pause and kinda download what you just took away from that chapter, and that's super easy to sit down with someone and kind of ping pong ideas and share and then learn, right? Because again, thinking differently that allows somebody else to speak into you what they got out of the chapter that maybe you missed.
So many times at the end of the chapter, not only do I give you things to do and to practice, but I usually ask you to invite someone to come into the discussion with you, discuss what you've learned with somebody else. And this is not a book that you should read in a weekend. It's really one you should take a chapter and make it your focus for 10 days, a month, whatever, but really go through it very slowly. And it's funny, you and I joke about this sometimes, Whitney. We both have to read the really thick, heavy books that, people in our business have to read. And I love them, but my clients appreciate that I write 5-minute chapters. I get to the point, lots of stories, and I give you actionable best practices. So my book, this one especially, 5-minute chapters, let's get to it. And you can skip around in the book very easily. It's not a novel. So there are 26 discrete topics, but they're all 5-minute chapters. You can jump around any way you want.
Awesome. What a different take. It's available now on Amazon. And then, Randy, I'd love for you to just share with our listeners if people want to reach out with you and work with you and learn more, how would they do that?
Thanks for bringing that up. The easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can follow me, connect with me. I just refer to the podcast. I'll be glad to accept your invitation. My website is Serviam, Serviam partners.com. That can tell you about the work I do as a coach and a consultant. But LinkedIn is probably the social media platform I use the most.
Wonderful. Well, I always enjoy our conversations, my friend. I always take away something new. So thanks for coming back on the podcast and sharing about your new book.
My pleasure. You're always a gracious host. Thank you.